Allegiance.
Get that answer 20 right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Baldwin, if you call a roll.
Ms. Carney?
Here.
Mr. Terry?
Here.
Mr. Daly? Ms. Ferguson?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Sitz?
Here.
Mr. Rucker?
Here.
I have one amendment to the agenda this evening. I would like to add in under the discussion items, the Citizen Recognition Program. Are there any further updates? And would anyone like to move to approve the amended agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended. Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sitz?
Yes.
And is there a motion to approve the council meeting minutes from August 8th?
I will motion to approve council meeting minutes from the 8th.
I will second.
Madam Chair, there's just a tiny little typo I meant to take care of before the meeting. But the minutes say council agenda at the top, and sure it's just an oversight, so.
I can get that corrected.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. It's been moved and seconded. Any other comments, discussion? Ms. Baldwin, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sitz?
Yes.
And did anyone sign in this evening to speak that would like to be considered a visitor?
We're visitors.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving out of the visitor section into reports, just wanted to mention that I attended the Plain City Parks and Rec event with Explore the Darby on Saturday with ODNR, and it was a great event. I'm not sure of the total number of people who attended, but there were several crawdads and fish that were caught during our creeking experience, so a lot of residents do enjoy that program, so it's neat to see it in its second year for it. Yesterday I attended the Historical Society's ice cream social, and there was a nice turnout as well for that, and I see that they're having an informational meeting tomorrow evening at their at the Historical Society with Race Robinson to talk about his updates to the building. So that's, I'm not sure if it's at 6 or 6:30, but that is happening in the Uptown tomorrow. And then today I met with Jerome Township Trustee Barry Adler, along with Denton Kitts, our Associate Parks and Rec Director, and Karen Walls of the Daughters of the American Revolution. There's been initiatives to talk about moving the monumental rock that is at the corner of 42 and 736 into Pastime Park, and so we met to kind of get the further documentation spurred along for needing to move the rock, because you'd think it'd be very simple to move it, but the Daughters of the American Revolution did not have any record of it, so we have to go back through that process of basically applying for a new monument. So we're hoping to get that before it has further deterioration to its foundation. So that's been a little bit of what I've been working on. And Ms. Sana, if you have anything for Finance Director?
I don't have anything for finance. I have some for administrator.
Yes, please.
Ryan reported, or Mr. Huff reported to me that they sold the street sweeper on GovDeals. So that was they sold it for $30,000, which is phenomenal for a 22-year-old vehicle. And then last is Ms. Granger reported that the Converse family, Robert Converse, left $2,000 to the park. So she's working with the family on what they would like to see done out there and to show for the money. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Sonnet. Chief McKee?
I just have a couple of things, Mayor. The police department will be completing their firearms qualification Monday. their annual firearm qualification. And then lastly, just a reminder, school started last week. I had a couple more officers down there for the school starting time for the school zone. It seemed to flow pretty good. Flow as good as it can there in the morning and stuff. It seems to still be flowing pretty good. So that's all I have at this time. So,
Thank you. Council President, Mr. Terry?
On 9/7, we're gonna have our Parks and Rec roundtable. That's our next work session, and that's everything I have.
Thank you. Any comments from our law director?
Just real quick, I don't know if I formally introduced myself last time I saw you all. My name is Ashley Hetzel. I'm from Paul Lafayette's office. So if you ever need anything, feel free to contact me. But I will reserve any comments until our later executive session.
Thank you, and welcome to our meetings. Marketing and Communications, Mr. Sims?
No real updates. We skipped our meeting for this month because of the branding initiative, and nothing new to provide.
Thank you. BZA, Mr. Daly isn't here at the moment. Ms. Burrell, is there any meeting?
No meeting.
And Planning and Zoning will not be meeting on Wednesday, but we have set the public hearing will be September 21st. Mr. Reed, with any updates from Parks and Rec?
Yeah, just a couple of notes. First, the music in the park stuff. 2 weeks ago, we had Emerald City Swing Orchestra. It was the feature performance group, and we had the largest crowd we've ever had out there. It was getting close to 150, which is our average is probably half that. So it was a really, really, really good experience. Everybody had a great time. Unfortunately, last week we got rained out Sunday. It was not raining, but it was just so wet they wouldn't want to put electricity on the ground or with the, in amongst mix up with the musicians. So we decided not to do that. Next week, this coming week, we have the Jonathan Alder Show Choir. So the high school students are going to be out there. If you have ties or connections to that group, then be sure and come out at 7 p.m. on Sunday to the gazebo area. I think it was probably where we're going to be. So looking forward to that. The Parks and Rec Committee met on the 15th, and we spent 90% of the time on the vision for the parks. And there was a robust discussion, another 9 o'clock adjournment for the committee that really engaged in this. They'll be here for the work session. I think probably all of them. Linda will make a presentation on a summary of or an overview of what the committee discussed and any conclusions that they came to. I will just say there's some really firm opinions on vision on the parks and what should or should not happen in specific cases. There's a lot of agreement on things and a little bit of, as you might expect, differences of opinion on other minor things. So it'll be an interesting work session, I believe, for you. And then you can toss in your own opinions about what the vision for the parks is. Interesting things are going on. So we didn't do much on the CIP. In addition to that, Linda's working on the budget stuff, and she'll coordinate that with the village budget people. So let me see. No, I think that's it. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Personnel and Finance, Ms. Ferguson?
Yes, we have a meeting scheduled next week, August 31st at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Fire Board, Mr. Sims?
No updates.
And then Design Review Board, Mr. Rucker?
I have not received any notifications, so I'm assuming we will not be having a meeting this month.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving out of reports into old business. Second reading, Resolution 15-2022, a resolution authorizing a waiver of park fees for the Darby Station development and authorizing a real estate transfer for approximately 40 acres within the MI development.
Motion to approve Resolution 15-2022.
Second.
Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
Second reading resolution 16-2022, a resolution approving renewal of contract for the collection of residential waste and garbage with recycling.
Motion to approve resolution 16, 2022.
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
Second reading ordinance 17-2022, creating a new fund for the purpose of receiving and expending One Ohio opioid settlement dollars.
Motion to approve ordinance 17, 2022.
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
And second reading ordinance 18-2022, an ordinance approving the vacation of a public alley within the village of Plain City near the intersection of West Main Street and Jefferson Avenue.
Motion to approve ordinance 2022.
Second.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Does this, there was some discussion about half of the alley in some places.
No,
Does this address this?
This is the full, this is
Different
Red
thing.
Hat, this is Red Hat, not, the bank building.
Okay, all right, got it.
The bank building one, actually, that's an interesting question. Are we still waiting on the bank building finalization of the, I think Mr. Reed brought up that we wanted an easement, so, for right away.
Mr. Lafayette is still working on that.
Okay, so there you go.
Would we be able to have an update on that agreement to make sure, I know we've been talking about this in several meetings.
Yeah, that, not this one, but the.
The other one, yeah.
Is there an ordinance number associated with that, or yet, or I think there was?
Yes.
Yeah, we want to get that.
Yeah, there was a first reading. And I actually talked to, randomly, I ran into Mr. Troyer, on the street actually, and I was talking about it, and he was very open to this easement, and he's half the person, and he said Mr. Medici would be open to it as well. So I assume it'll be fine, we just have to put it in writing.
Thank you for that comment on that. Moving out of old business into new business, first reading resolution 17-2022, surplus property. And if there are no questions on that, moving out new business into discussion items. The first one up is the branding initiative update. So I will at this moment turn it over to our consultants and Ms. Brill, and they can take the floor.
We'll just kind of like.
It's usually on both TVs, hold on.
This one, for whatever reason, HDMI is not reading. Sorry.
I was like, usually you can sit there and not have to turn around.
Well, thank you, everybody, for having us here tonight. We put a presentation together so that we can walk you through the process that we've been through up until this point, and then share with you what we've worked with the steering committee to hopefully you guys will be in agreement to move forward with when it comes to both the brand strategy and the visual brand. So, if you can. So just to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page when we're talking about brand, because I think, you know, obviously you're probably anxious to see what things look like from a visual perspective, but your brand is more than your logo. It is really the symbolic embodiment of all the things that represent your place. So the associations that, and expectations that people actually have with the village are all part of this. So it's important that the story piece and how you communicate moving forward are all connected. So when we began working with the steering committee, we started with wanting to understand what your objectives were. So for this project, the group identified that they wanted a brand that would give a fresh look and identity that will take us into the future, that puts a plan in place and provides like a sense of organization, really when it comes to communicating about the village, builds process and consistency, provides a foundation for better signage development, helps the village more easily expand marketing and communication efforts, making it easier to reach people, and increases community pride. So those are always, great, focus objectives for this type of work. So that process, we started by looking at a lot of the things that you already had in place, any of your current brand materials, any of the ways that you are currently communicating with your residents and businesses. But we also came in and we conducted a discovery workshop, both with the steering committee and a group of stakeholders from the community. It had also included, you can move forward, a community tour, and we just wanted to spend time and make sure that we understood who you were so that we could begin translating it into the tools that are going to work for you. From that, we did create a project website just to make sure that we were able to communicate and people could come and see what was going on. They could take surveys and participate in that work. And from there, we created a discovery report out, and we're going to touch on a few of those things this evening from that report. So that was really us taking all the information from both the steering committee, the surveys, from the stakeholder groups, and putting it out in front of you, and then also beginning to translate it into parts of your strategy. From the public survey standpoint, the first survey that went out hit 221 responses, and then the second one gave us 365. And just so that you understand, that second report actually took pieces from that brand strategy and put it back out to the public just to make sure that the things that were being said were resonating well with the public. And then the next piece, we actually came back today and we had a departmental brand implementation workshop, because it's one thing to create these pieces, it's a whole other thing to actually put it into use. So we don't want to just come in here and say, oh, here's a strategy, here's some, here's a logo and a few ways to use it, good luck. So it was really a great opportunity to talk through some of the current things that you do from a communication standpoint to ensure that we can help create a plan for you that will build on the things that you're doing, but also use these new tools to help move things forward. So just some highlights from that brand strategy piece, and this is really the way to tell your story. One of the key pieces that we focus on is highlighting what we call your distinct advantages. These are the unique mix of things that make you you. It makes you Plain City. You might have a lot of things that other cities surrounding you have, but your mix tells the story of who you are. So the first one is a modern rural escape. Only a quick highway drive from Ohio's capital city, Plain City is a breath of fresh air compared to the headaches and hassles of downtown Columbus. But this charming village is more than a quick getaway or a trip into town. The top-tier schools, expanded housing options, and quality services make Plain City the perfect place to call home. Time-honored traditions. From the baseball opening day parade in July's Steam Threshers show to year-round music in the park events, farmers markets, and antique shows, Plain City always makes time for a good time. We love to honor our agricultural heritage and industrious roots while celebrating all that makes us special today. Harmonious living. Community isn't just what we are, it's who we are. In Plain City, every face is a friendly one, and residents generally care about one another. If someone needs a helping hand, they'll find 5 of them ready to lift them up. Our schools, civic, and faith-based organizations, and multi-generational families work hard to pass down the neighborly values that have always tied our people close together. And future-focused. Our historic clock tower sits at the center of town, reminding us for where we've been, as well as where we're going. We practice mindful planning and careful investment to preserve the vitality of our businesses and well-being of our citizens. While we are fiercely protective of all that we've built, we walk towards the future with excitement for the partnerships and opportunities beyond the horizon. So it's something to keep in mind that these distinct advantages should feel true and feel rooted in who you are, but also pieces of it should be aspirational and also sort of guide how the village moves forward. We also did exercises to help us understand your personality, because this is a really important component of expressing who you are, not just in the visual aspect, but also in how you communicate. So some of the the red words are the ones that we heard the most were proud, loyal, neighborly, old-fashioned, and hardworking. And then there's a lot of other supportive words, such as approachable, conservative, quaint, and humble. And all of this kind of comes together in what we call a positioning statement. It's really important to note that a positioning statement is an internal statement to guide communications for your organization. So this isn't necessarily something that goes out to the public, but it should be the foundation in terms of how you talk about your village. Now, we've also encouraged a lot of the municipalities that we work with to use this statement as a decision-making tool, because it can also guide decisions that you make about your community. Because anything that you bring here, any development that you do, any new programs that you implement should feel like they belong in what you're talking about here. So the Village of Plain City is a proud, modern rural community where people and businesses alike come to prosper. Located in central Ohio, our village offers safe, stress-free suburban living, paired with housing options and exceptional schools and amenities. We practice intentional planning, investment, and governance, ensuring we preserve our agricultural heritage and neighborly harmony while welcoming opportunities needed for future success. So the steering committee will tell you that we read this statement at the beginning of every meeting and before every presentation, because it also helps kind of keep in mind when we make decisions about even the visuals that the group selected. So I'll turn this over to Gina to talk a little bit about the brand look and feel.
Alrighty. So as you can see, this mark integrates the clock tower as really the iconic representation of the village. We heard so much about the clock tower. You have so many events that happen under the clock tower, and it's really kind of the central point of the community. So we kept with that, but really paying homage to that history, but looking to the future. So the illustration style here is timeless. The clouds that kind of break the enclosure speak to that quality that being in Plain City feels like a breath of fresh air. The type treatment too, you can feel that airiness there. And really, the colors here are solid and stable. They feel hardworking, connected to that agriculture, and a feeling of quaintness and charm. So really, we're expressing some of those key words that we heard, like charming, hardworking, humble, conservative, approachable, and industrious. So as we go through this presentation, we show you kind of application examples. These aren't the, end of the road, but it's helpful to see how the logo could look in different applications. And one of the things we like to do is make sure it works in black and white, because something that looks good in color is all good, but it also needs to work in black and white. So we show that here, that this translates well. We also like to give our communities multiple options to choose from, knowing that you might need some flexibility. You might not always want to include the tower in your mark. So on the right, you have a type-only version that also works well, and a seal version on the left there. Again, the grayscale version. And then we're starting to explore color and type as well. So ultimately, if we move forward with this logo, that will move into brand guidelines, and we'll outline which typefaces should be used with the brand and recommend colors. So really to keep everything consistent and to give people a playbook from where to go. But this is kind of the starting point of that. And then here's those application examples. Like I said, these don't have to be the finals, but they're ideas just to show you how this could come to life in business cards. You can see how you might use that type-only logo on the front, but maybe do the full logo on the back, then the window decal, and on vehicles. And just showing that kind of range in the t-shirt designs of using those different marks and how it looks on different colors within the brand palette. You might want to do some swag, so it's always fun to see something like a mug or a cap. More examples here, just showing how that mark might look on the bag or on water bottles. Again, like on the water bottle on the right, you see how you might separate the type and the tower element, so you can play with those elements a little bit. How a banner system might look, and how signage could look, or uniforms. And then this last page just shows an exploration of color that we're looking at. This is all within the Plain City palette as we've kind of got it envisioned right now. So as we work through the guidelines, we would identify one that might be your main colorway, and then you also have these others available to you to use. And we kind of outline the rules for that in the guidelines. That is what we have to share today.
Awesome. And so a couple program questions. So when is the branding initiative set to, like, when is the project set to finish?
We should be done fall, but it should be in the next 2 months, really.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had tentatively scheduled October, and like, I don't know if, and maybe this isn't a fair question anyone here, I don't know if we adopt this as like a ordinance resolution or how do we do that, but maybe we'll look into how that works and everything. So what sort of feedback are you looking for from us this evening?
So one, I think, based on some of the things that we talked about in the strategy, so it's always good to hear sort of the feedback of, when we read that position statement, how does that make you feel? Does this feel like Plain City to you? And then also when you think about that positioning statement, how do you feel about the visual that now actually aligns with that piece? Because a lot of what we're doing, like what is going to be wrapped up in the next couple of months is, as Gina said, we work on developing a few pieces that you are going to need to move forward. So the brand style guide is actually a whole guiding document that talks about how you use the logo, how you don't use the logo, the typefaces, the colors, all the things that are going to bring consistency to how this looks visually. The second part that we're bringing to you is an implementation plan. So when we talked about that today, it really covers thinking about how your brand is used in 4 key areas. So the first one is your brand story. So that's really the key messaging that represents Plain City and how that gets presented and delivered to different audience groups. So one of the things that we did explore through that brand strategy was really understanding your audience groups so that when you communicate, you can communicate to each of these groups with the information they care about the most. And not just, a lot of cities, it's kind of like, we're gonna give everybody everything, and then they can kind of pick through it. But the best way to build attention and engagement and trust is to know what certain people want and make sure you're delivering it to them where they're at. So that plan is gonna help with pieces of that. So the next component is communications. So understanding the way that you currently communicate and also taking a look at those audience groups and saying, are we doing enough to reach everybody? Are there other things that we need to be doing to make sure that people know how to engage with the village? Another piece is the identity piece. So beyond just giving you the basics, what are the other ways that you may want to be using your brand? How are you managing it internally? Because the management piece is pretty important too. And then the last piece is thinking about brand experience and how that brand is represented in the types of events that you have and how it's presented out into the physical environment of the village. So we talked about each of those things, and this plan is going to be our recommendations for you to think about, and they're not things that are going to be done immediately. They're things to think about, over the course of years, but also will, bring recommendations on where you should prioritize some of your efforts.
Perfect.
And then there'll be also some templates that will give you guys.
And I think, okay, perfect. And I think it would probably make sense for us to adopt something like that, just like we'd adopt the comp plan or something in the future. So that's great. So my initial feedback is I really like it. I think focusing on just the words Plain City, kind of getting away from Village of Plain City. I saw it on the seal and I shivered a little bit. But outside of that, I'd rather just go to share, we're just Plain City now.
We did talk about that as a committee, that some of the original all had Village of, and we thought,
Yeah,
what happens when we change? And so
95% of those just
pull
didn't
that
say
out,
all of
yeah.
that. I think the colors make sense. I can't describe agricultural colors, but they feel agricultural to me. It feels like it all ties together. This isn't my forte. I'm a finance guy. So it's all for me. I think it's all headed down the right path. I wouldn't, give any, it wouldn't be meaningful criticism or anything. The one thing I will say, during this, I just quickly went to our website to try to find any information about this, and I couldn't find anything. So if we could get this, maybe, we talk about communication and everything, if we get this more upfront on the website, I don't know if like some sort of thing like this PowerPoint or something makes sense to be up there, that might be beneficial. I know we already have a steering committee and we're getting surveys out, but do we want to start socializing this, or do we want to wait till we adopt it? What are people's thoughts on that?
Recommendation typically is you decide as an organization and you move forward because you are going to get a variety of opinions and it's not going to help you move forward. Sure. And it really is, it's an organizational thing, and if done well and done right, will be easily like accepted and adopted over time. There are people who are going to be uncomfortable with change, and that's true. But it is not something that I would recommend be put out to a vote, and you will get comments no matter what, even once it's rolled out. So if you're comfortable with it, then really most municipalities make that decision and they move forward.
Perfect. I'll lean on the experts then. I think that's fine. So it's great for me.
So do you have have you refined a vision of what Plain City's brand should look like? And I'm talking about specifically like Denver, Colorado, you think of Western culture. Los Angeles, you think of Hollywood. They got the big sign out there just to introduce you to the concept. New York, you think of skyscrapers and business and busy. So have you developed any kind of thought about where Plain City is going to fall?
Well, actually, it was in that positioning statement. That statement where we said a proud, modern, rural community, because that is what it's something that you want to keep a hold of. Like, it was really apparent in all of our steering committee meetings and our stakeholder meetings that even as you move forward, and even as you progress and innovate, there is a really key part of who you are from heritage and tradition and personality standpoint, that you want to preserve that agricultural heritage and you want to continue to have that feel. Even if you turn over into a city because of population, you're still going to want to have that feeling of a neighborly village. Like, these are really important, like, core values to who you are. But we paired that with the modern piece because you are. In the way that you think, in the way that you progress, there is a really modern attitude towards it, but also like this deep desire to protect who you are. So I think that's probably...
Okay, yeah, I get that, and I think you're on the right track of it. Just from my own experience with Plain City, it has a pretty well-defined culture here, and people move here because of that culture. And I appreciate what you said about moving forward, okay, without losing that culture and making it almost seem like you can see it. Like, okay, we have this blend now of the past, and we have a modern residential base that is attached to our culture. Yeah. But they're just going down and working in the State House and in high-tech industries and stuff like that. So we're just that group that really appreciates the past and the cultural aspects of it, the quaintness, everything about it. Yep. So if you can capture that, then that'll be great.
And that's what I'm asking you, like, as you see these visuals of this moving forward, does that feel like that captures it for you? Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's kind of the response that we're looking for from all of you. I know that's how the steering committee felt and why they selected this, because there were a variety of marks that were presented, and this is the one that they selected to move forward with.
The other thing that we wanted council's opinion on was keeping village or removing village, which is pretty clear that
we've been talking about that since the very first council meeting I attended in 2022. The issue was, what are we going to be called when we become a city? And it was pretty unanimous. It should be Plain City. That was There's somebody stuck something in the charter called City of Plain City, which is not even poetic, so that's not gonna fly.
I like the design. It's a very clean look, but I feel like you have really captured our identity, and so thank you for your time that you put into it. Any other
No, I think it's
You
great.
red and black for all their colors.
I think it's great.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Look forward to seeing the finished product.
Yes. Our next topic of discussion is Uptown Streetscape. Is that, Ms. Brill, are you, okay.
Yeah, so we included in your packet, the most updated version of the streetscape proposal. So this came to us from OHM, and I believe based on the last conversations you had with Ms. Lupton, council's wish was that this extend up Chillicothe Street. So this is kind of showing you the new proposed streetscape, from Smith Place down to the corner of Chillicothe and Main Street, and then up the street there, around the corner along Chillicothe Street, up into the point that ends about where Mr. Smucker's insurance office is. So this is kind of what has been proposed in that expanded scope of work. So, Ms. Lupton had asked that we just bring this in front of council, make sure that this captured everything that we discussed at that previous meeting, and then we'll instruct OHM that this is the proposal we'll move forward with.
So-
We'll get it out to business owners, get those agreements, and then bid it out.
Perfect, yeah, and I've talked to a few of the business owners. I know that you had met with Mr. Robinson, and he, really liked the idea of the bricks and everything, which obviously this is a big part of his. So I think the elephant in the room, right, is kind of if we could have Ms. Sonnet or Ms. Brill walk us through kind of the cost and maybe the deviations from the original kind of budget. I think that's kind of what we all want to hear. So can you kind of, how much was the original budget for this project, or the original bid to this project?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Is this a this year project?
Yes.
Yeah, it is, right? So it's August, and we don't have a cost.
I want to say 350,000 was budgeted for it. I believe.
350?
But I don't know if that encompasses the new scope of work. I don't think it does.
So I think that generally speaking, I can't put words in my mouth, but we all want more. We all want to do everything, right? I think what we need to understand is just what the total impact is and where it fits in our kind of budget. So I was trying to look through that, and I think the way I was thinking about it was a very simple, I call it big, bigger, biggest. So big being the projects. I don't think anything we're doing here is small, right? So our original project, and then what it would be if we did the extension to Mr. Smucker's location, and then what would it be if we did the whole thing from Mr. Smucker's to Smith Place. In my personal opinion, you bring out people to do construction, you're paying a significant amount just to get them out here. Once they're out here, it's probably going to be a more economic, feasible decision to do it all at once. So I'm a big proponent of doing it once. But if there is going to be in a budget appropriation, supplemental, we need to know what that number is. And I think that is really all that I need to kind of make a decision. It's just what are the dollars and cents on this?
I believe the plan shows the original, and then it has alternates for the different, I saw it in front of Lovejoy Plaza, there was an alternate there, and I believe the, going north onto the Chillicothe Street, was it another?
On the
alternate?
contract?
So, exactly, yeah, so if we could.
Okay, yeah, so if we pull up the contract, I'm gonna skip a bunch of legalese here.
I was looking at the picture, the map that they sent.
Oh, it's all shown on the
Yeah,
map.
you go down to the bottom. Did I see that?
You're fine.
On the plan or the contract?
That was on the plan.
Because I think I think that's the information I need to make a decision. Clear.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Mr. Terry. This is, you know, if this is gonna take $25 to extend it up Chillicothe Street, that's great. If it's gonna take $250,000 additional to move it up Chillicothe Street, there's no way I'm gonna support that. Simply because we had a plan for streetscapes, which involved doing in sides of the street in order as the years proceed. And while it would be nice, really nice, and if we can do it, then fine. I'm all for it. I'm all for the whole thing. But I'm not for adding a significant amount of money to the budget. This year, as we've talked about before, we're in deficit budgeting this year, and we should not be adding to it for this kind of a project.
So,
But since it has a plan already for implementation.
I'm glad you brought up that.
Okay.
So for me, I don't think we need to add to the budget. I think that we've been looking for a practical way to expend the, I think it's called CARES Act dollars, it might be ARPA dollars. We looked at the I&I, it didn't seem like that had a lot of bang for the buck. I think, you know, we have to put this to something that's for the greater good of the entire community. It's nice to pay salaries and do things like that, but I think if we can fit this in that money, I think that's somewhere where we can say budget neutral while also utilizing those funds in a manner that would, you know, help us get a project done that we all want to get done. So I respect the fact that we got to keep budget neutral. We've been looking for a place to use these. I don't know, but again, without knowing the total amount, I don't even know if that's enough to cover.
There you
this.
go. We need that,
Yeah, I don't know if that's
that
enough
one
to
number
cover.
for sure. As far as the ARPA funds are concerned, there's multiple uses those could be put for. The original, I think, proposal from the past administration was to use it to pay for the water plant. I wasn't crazy about that idea because there's other community support things that it could be used for.
Sure.
And this is just one of them. And if we want to have that conversation about ARPA funds, we can put it on the agenda because we maybe should get around to talking about those ARPA funds and what we're going to use them for. I would be completely open to that. But the idea of spending a large amount extra of dollars this year is not that appealing to me. Just my personal take on it.
Everybody else's opinion on this?
I think I need to see the numbers.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to see the numbers.
Yeah, and I think they're here, to be honest with you. If I look at this contract, I'm not gonna sit here and try to pretend like I can go through this, because it has like amendment number 2, amendment number 3. I think just a simple one slide page, right, of like,
Yeah.
this much, this much, this much, and then here's the budgeted amount. If we could have that, even if we put it in the work session, like up front, in front of the Parks and Recs, I don't want to delay this, I don't, but realistically, until we have that, it's my personal goal to do it all, as long as we can fit it in. And I think that maybe, I think all of those questions kind of come together, right? Like, what is the budget for this year in this? What was kind of where we were thinking for the budget? Because if we are moving money up, you know, we gotta weigh that. What are the ARPA funds? And then what's the biggest? And I think maybe, like, I really think you're doing a slide, like a single, just like explanation to us on the 9th or 7th.
7.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
In our last discussion item, the Citizen Recognition Program. I know Mr. Thomas is here in the audience. So not sure how much brainstorming happened on different locations from last meeting.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of bring us up to a summary of where we were, right? So we have a petition signed by 100 people. Most of the qualifications were either met in full or, you know, in the spirit of, you know, we talked about, you know, inside the village versus not inside the village. And I think where we had left off when we were all thinking about was brainstorming about how we want to propose this recognition happen. And then we talked with the applicant. I don't know if we talked with him in the middle of this meeting, but good that he's here to listen in. You know, I've done some, you know, talking around with neighbors, just thinking. I know we had mentioned an idea of how does this look? Is it, you know, signage? Is it something in the park? Is it, you know, where would it fit? What would work right? And I think to maintain kind of our brand, our aesthetics, right? I don't want to end up with welcome to the home of 10 different individuals. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that are very deserving of an honor. Mr. Keith being one of them. But I think that a lot of these are going to come up. So what I was hoping we could do is find a solution not just for this recognition, but maybe kind of set a precedent of this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to operate and in our signage. And I like the idea of, you know, kind of carving out a space, like within the park where we hang like a plaque and we start, you know, going through and kind of, you know, recognizing individuals. I thought that was a good idea. I'm also open to other ideas, but I think that's where I kind of landed is I'd like to figure it out, but not just for this one, but for all, setting a precedent. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are.
I think it's good to have a policy for recognition, just just cover the field of citizen recognition with a policy. And then it's going to take a little longer to come up with the policy.
Well, we have a policy. Let's be very clear. We have a policy.
What is the policy?
We have shared the policy multiple times. The policy was fulfilled. The policy was completed. Let's not pretend that doesn't exist. So there is a policy, and at the end of that submission, it is basically our duty to determine how we recognize, right? Like this is.
If it was a complete policy, Mr. Terry, those answers would be in the policy.
I mean,
so that's why.
I think there's options. I think there's an option, and we've never done it before.
Okay,
so
I got it, and that's why I'm just saying it's a good opportunity to do it right, to lay it all out the way the program's supposed to work.
I think that's the plan here. The plan is to come up with how we want to implement the recognition, and then that all gets added into the final draft of the policy.
Perfect.
So what do you guys think? How do you guys want to start recognizing favorite sons, favorite daughters of the town?
I really like the thought of the designated place, you know, small footprint, but, you know, if,
I would like it to be someplace that's actually visible though. I mean, not just tucked away back in the corner of the park.
Very, very
true. I want something when people come to town, they can say, hey, yeah, this is where this guy's from.
And when you say park, do you mean Pastime Park or Bicentennial Park?
I'm open though. I to be honest with you, I'm kind of open to wherever. I think Mr. Rucker's point's valid, right? Like we're not trying to hide this away,
right.
So
it needs to be visible.
Like, visible. So
and does it fit into our discussion on the work session of things at the park, of where things go, at the location of it?
For that matter, right, you know, as you're coming into town, you've got the sign there in the park that lists civic organizations. I would maybe look at incorporating into that area.
I mean the corner of 42 and
it's on North Chillicothe. It's in the park.
It's in the park.
Yeah, it's in the park. There's a large billboard type.
Oh, okay, cool. Like right there.
Like
okay.
Kiwanis and Rotary and Masonic Lodge, all those different organizations there. I'd like to see it incorporate something in that already existing area that would be, that way you're not trying to maintain two areas. You've got one area with both items there.
And how do people get recognized of that right now? It's just historical.
Civic organizations like Steam Pushers, DAR, you said Masonic Lodge.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's typical. I mean, and I remember, that's a fairly common thing in a lot of smaller communities. They'll have those signs with the different, and a lot of places will list the meeting times for those organizations. So if someone's coming in to visit from out of town, say, I'm a Kiwanis member, and I'd like to go to a Kiwanis meeting here, say, oh, okay, I see Kiwanis meets at 6:30, on Mondays or something. And so, I mean, that's the purpose of those signs, but.
Anything any other ideas?
No.
So I guess in my opinion, the best way to solve this is to maybe, does this fall under like where we ask, Linda or someone to actually put together a proposal that we can like vote on? Like us just talking about it, I mean, we spent 6 months doing this, right? I think we just pick a person.
I would certainly want her input.
Yeah, I'm just saying we pick someone it's their responsibility. They bring us a proposal that we vote on. And that, can be, Ms. Lupton, it could be Ms. Granger. We just make it the administration, let them figure it out and say, hey, in like 6 weeks.
Do we provide some guidelines?
Let them designate the person that's going to come up with it, and have whoever the administrator designates to come up with this, present something to us.
Do we need to first come up with some general guidelines to give them direction?
I feel like we're giving general, I'm looking at my stand-in. Like you get a feel for what we're looking for, and I think something that's scalable, something that allows a precedent that we can add to, because I think this is the first of many.
Visible, scalable.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, and there's a lot of communities that have. I would assume that you could copy what they do or modify them.
Options.
Yeah, there are multiple options. You can look at different, and then maybe come up with multiple options, bring multiple options to us, and we can decide which one's best.
Mr. Rucker, what would you think about as you come into Plain City from Dublin and you cross the bridge and you get past McKittrick Park, there's that little green space there, that cutout that's just past the entrance where you go down. Do you know what I'm?
I know what you're talking about.
Would that be an appropriate place to?
I don't know, that's the old
Clutter.
cemetery location.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
That's the old cemetery location.
Oh.
There's a grave there.
I think that part would clutter it, because I know, talking with the mayor of London, they're trying to take the signs and eventually put them in their parks of all the different, so I mean.
So we already have a sign in the park.
No, that's good, I
Yes.
just thought I'd.
We also have one out by, Scheiderer Farm. But as we move further east, that's probably gonna have to get moved.
Yeah, good.
So.
All right.
Yeah, I think Linda and the administration would have a good idea of what would look clean.
Absolutely.
I think visible, clean, scalable. We don't want to have to redo this in 5-10 years. We want this to be a permanent recognition. So I feel like I kind of visualize it in my head, but I can't quite put it in words as how I'd say it.
Okay, does everybody feel good moving forward with that next step of it? All right. This concludes our regular portion of our business meeting. We're about to move into executive session, so we will not be coming back with any decisions. So we thank everybody for attending. We're about to enter into executive session, ORC section 121.22G8, to consider confidential information related to the negotiations with other political subdivisions. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I will motion that we go into ORC section 121.22G.
Second.
We're not going into executive session until Mr. Rucker comes back.
Yeah.
We don't have.
We have 5 members of presence. We're not entering anything when he comes back to the record. You can't
Hold
call
on.
it.
Yeah,
you can't
don't-
call it.
Because Mr. Rucker is.
You can't enter executive session without 506. So we're not going to be able to actually enter until Mr. Rucker comes back.
We're waiting on the councilman.
No, that stays open.
That makes me feel bad.
Don't, I just want to get it hard. But don't feel bad.
That's what
I can't feel bad. We all have exactly the same symptoms.
He's just out there, you just say.
No, was just standing out there talking.
Oh, let me tell you. John, did you come in and vote real quick and then check the chat? We gotta vote for the executive session.
I'm sorry.
We don't have Mr. Daly, we can't enter that.
Yes.
We need you to enter executive session.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Now you
Now
can
you
call
can
roll.
Okay. Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.